Volume 2, the foreword reads by Pastor Russell. The Bible chronology shows that the sixth great thousand year beginning with Adam age ended, and that the great 7,000 years of Christ began in 1874, the great 7,000 year day. Is it entirely safe to say, he says, that in these 42 years since 1874, he says, the world has increased in riches thousandfold, and we remember that behind these years lies a total of 6,000 years of human endeavor. So it seems almost a miracle that we should accomplish 1,000 more times in these 42 years than in the 6,000 years preceding. So we want to talk about the day of God's preparation. In the 12th chapter of Daniel, the book of Daniel, verses 1, Daniel writes, "And at that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince which standeth for the children of men. And there shall be a time of trouble was such as never was since there was a nation, even to the same time. And at that time shall thy people be delivered, every one that shall be found written in the book." Now Daniel was anxious to know when God's kingdom would deliver God's people. But in verse 4, Daniel was told to shut up the words and seal the book, even to the time of the end. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased. In volume 3, page 23, we read, "The time of the end is a period of 115 years from 1799 to 1914 is particularly marked in the scriptures. The day of his preparation is another name given to the same period, because it is in a general increase in knowledge resulting in discoveries, inventions, etc., paves the way for the coming millennial of favor. This day of God's preparation is the entire millennial age, as 2 Peter 3:8 tells us, that one day with the Lord as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years as one day. It will take the entire millennium to prepare the mankind for eternity. It is a day or period of preparation in another sense also. For by the increase in knowledge among the masses, giving to all a taste of liberty and luxury, before Christ's rule is established rightly to regulate the world, these blessings will gradually become agencies of class power and will result in the uprising of the masses and the overthrow of corporate trusts, etc., which will fall also all of the present dominion of earth, civil and ecclesiastical, leading to the establishment of the universal dominion of the kingdom of God so long prayed for. In volume 3, exact Bible chronology shows the year 1872 to be 6,000 years from Adam's creation, and the beginning of the 7,000-year millennium. And the Jubilee cycles show October 1874 to be the date of Jesus' return and the beginning of restitution times. Now, long before 1799, Sir Isaac Newton predicted from the Bible that man could possibly travel at the rate of 50 miles an hour. For this, he was berated by Voltaire, a noted French infidel. He said that Sir Isaac was losing his mind. So how fast have things developed since 1799? Before 1799, the drum was the fastest means of communication. Horseback was the fastest means of travel. It may surprise some to be told that for the past years since 1874, some short 146 years means more to the world in increase of education, increase in wealth, increase in all manner of labor-saving devices, inventions, and conveniences, increase of safeguards and protection of human life than did all the 6,000 years that preceded. The first steamboat was operated in 1807, the first steam car in 1831, the first telegraph in 1844. At the start of the millennium, the sewing machine was just beginning to reach perfection. Now it is indispensable. Prior to 1874, man labored from sun to sun. Now we have an 8-hour day. Prior to 1874, all labor was done by sweat of face. Now it is nearly accomplished all by machinery. So with the 1,000 household conveniences, so with all of our sanitary and plumbing arrangements, so with farming implements, planters, reapers, production of food has increased tremendously as farming practices have advanced. Grain production is way up. When I was young, 87 now, most of the farming was done with teams of horses. I worked with them. That was only less than 60 years ago. We have relatives in the Midwest, the Farm Belt. The man he has a lot of farmland. He's been farming all his life. He's almost 80. He said farming was to be almost year-round work. It used to be. He said now he is on the 448 plan. And I said, what is that? He said, with the advanced machinery and the technology, they can practically do all the planting and harvesting in 4 weeks, leaving 48 weeks of the year to do other things. So if farming practices have advanced so much and as yet unperfected earth, where they are subject to drought and hail, think of what can be produced in a perfected earth. There would be abundance everywhere. No one would go hungry. It was recently reported that California leads the nation in poverty at 17% and another 17% on the edge. It has been only 146 years from 1874 that automobiles and gas engines also belong to this short period of time. Not to mention the rapid communications of late years by computers, cell phone, etc. How many of us brethren ever thought they would have a wonderful worldwide convention by these means? Thanks be to God and those who understand these devices, myself not included. Solomon in all his glory never dreamed of such things as the poorest in many countries enjoy. We remember the text in Isaiah 21:11. Watchmen, what of the night? A morning cometh and a night also. Who can dispute the fact? Is not the hope of the Bible being fulfilled? What do they signify? They answer that they exactly corroborate the divine declaration that describes our day. According to the Bible, God foreknew the conditions of our day, and then in the text, he gives the key to the situation through the prophet Daniel and Jesus. God tells of a dark night coming after the morning dawn, Daniel 12:1. And at that time shall Michael stand up, the prince for the children of the people, and there shall be a time of trouble such as never was since there was a nation. And Jesus in Matthew 24:21 says, for there shall be great tribulation, such as not since the beginning of the world to this time. 1 Thessalonians 5:4 reads, for you, brethren, are not in darkness that the day should overtake you as a thief. Other scriptures that Jesus gave about his return are Mark 13:26 and Luke 21:21 reading, and then shall ye see the Son of Man coming in clouds with power, great power and glory. Pastor Russell saw that the clouds were figurative of the great time of trouble. He saw that from scripture chronology that 1914 would introduce this great time of trouble that Jesus foretold in Matthew 24:21. He had predicted the outbreak of the World War by the fall of 1914 and had received much ridicule from his enemies who had contended civilization had advanced too far to allow such a conflict. We have been told, excuse me, brother, we have been told that the Gideons They're the ones who put Bibles in hotel rooms. They had a convention in Toronto in 1913. And they said such expectation as Pastor Russell were beyond belief with what the advances in science, art, and culture this generation had experienced. In 1913, all the countries were so quiet that Pastor Russell began to doubt his own chronology. So he called together several elders to help him go over his chronology, but they found no error. When Pastor Russell emphasized the suddenness with which the war would come, he did not fully realize how suddenly it would be. In the fall of 1914, Archduke Ferdinand and his wife were driving through the quiet, peaceful countryside of Serbia when they were both assassinated. This set off the war. As the floodwaters suddenly came in nowadays, so the war came suddenly. Within days, the armies of Germany, Austria, Russia, England, and France were being mobilized. Then Germany gave Russia 24 hours to explain why they were being mobilized. And receiving no answer, Germany then declared war on Russia. And in a few days, England, Austria, and France all declared war. The armies of Germany swept through France and Belgium rapidly. The whole European world was thrown into a holocaust never before seen. The New York Stock Exchange closed for 90 days and no one could buy or sell, no matter how pressing the need may be. In remembering the three pictures, the flooded day of Noah's day, the destruction of Sodom, and the wars of 1914 and 1939, the world wars, it emphasized the suddenness which a calamity can overtake the world. We're all aware of how the world has suddenly been launched into chaos by a virus. In conjunction, while talking of the establishment of Messiah's kingdom, the Bible everywhere foretells Messiah's kingdom, which is God's great provision, which will lift the curse and bring blessings worldwide. Nevertheless, it is to be established on the wreck of our present institutions, the wreck of social, political, financial, and religious institutions of the present time, which is unseen to the world, unknown to the world, unsuspected, unbelieved, until the trouble comes with suddenness. It is interesting to know how few the human race understand that this is the day of God's preparation for Jesus' kingdom. Through the prophet Daniel, God tells of a dark night coming after the morning dawn. We are in the morning of our text. What a glorious morning. How changed are the human condition from that of our grandfathers. Praise should be rising from all the people of the favored land. Are the people happy and rejoicing? Are they appreciative of the new day and the gifts of divine providence? No, in proportion as the gifts have come, the discontent of humanity has increased, and unbelief not only in respect to the Bible as a divine revelation, but also in respect to the existence of an intelligent creator. Who can dispute the facts? Is not the hope of the Bible being fulfilled? Isaiah 21:11-12 reads, Watchmen, what of the night? A morning cometh and a night also. God foreknew the condition of our day, and in that text he gives a key to the situation, the morning of the day of preparation. In E volume 17, page 69, Brother Johnson writes, Since 1874, God has in an educational and a natural way opening the eyes of the people to see the truth all along lines of human thought, bringing forth light on religious subjects not previously seen. Also bringing light forth on secular subjects. This has resulted in the last generation being much more enlightened than previous generations. A great increase in knowledge is spreading among the people on arts, science, philosophy, history, law, governments, rulers, political economy, sociology, capital, commerce, aristocracy, distribution, wealth, poverty, unemployment, exploitation, wages, profits, special privileges, political elections, and parties, human rights, health, etc. He says the Lord is using 1,000 ways to bring the truth on these subjects to light, by TV, radio, newspapers, and book. We know that all these subjects are brought forth daily before our minds. Yet in proportion as these gifts have come, the discontent in humanity has increased. How bright this morning has been. The text of Isaiah 21:11 tells of the dark night after the morning dawn. Romans 8:22 tells us that the whole creation groaneth and travaileth in pain until now. No thoughtful person will question the human family as a whole is a groaning creation. Whenever we hear music, laughter, and see throngs engaging in all sorts of manner of entertainment, we might be inclined to say that there's a great portion of the creation that is not groaning much. If we look closely, however, we find that much of the laughter is an offset to tears, and much of the entertainment is indulged with the desire to drown care. Most people are aware of the troubling situation and fearful of things that are happening on the earth. Bible students who understand God's plans are very fortunate, knowing that the results of the trouble will benefit mankind. And we can see the wisdom of the great Creator's program. 1 Thessalonians 5:1-4. But of the times and the seasons, brethren, ye have no need that I write unto you. For you yourselves know perfectly that the day of the Lord so cometh as a thief in the night. In verse 3. For when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction come upon them as a travail upon a woman with child. And they shall not escape. But ye, brethren, not in darkness, that the day should overtake you as a thief. So, brethren, we are fortunate to understand these things. God has determined to let mankind convince himself of their own inability to govern, of their own and of their need for a God, and the fact that there is a God. Concerning this, we read in Zephaniah 3:8. Therefore, wait upon me, saith the Lord, until the day that I rise up to the prey. For my determination is to gather the nations, that I may assemble the kingdom, to pour upon them mine indignation, even all my fierce anger. For all the earth shall be devoured with the fire by jealousy. Through modern day technologies, the nations have been gathered in close contact as never before. But then in verse 9, God says, for then will I turn to the people a pure language, that they may all call upon the name of the Lord to serve him with one consent. And nevertheless, the general operation of the law of selfishness prevails. And all the legislation which has been enacted or can be enacted fails to restrain the great institutions, the corporations of our day, fails to hinder them from exploiting the masses to the intent of a corporate few. There are some noble, rich souls who are worthy of praise in giving out some of their wealth. There is an article I found in reprint 5305, written by Pastor Russell about this day of preparation. He wrote this in September 1913, and it is entitled God's Supervision in the World and in the Church, and the subtopic was According to God's Will. Excuse me. He writes, by faith we believe that God has a supervision of all the affairs of today. Therefore, if we voted for a candidate at the last presidential election, and if we thought the one more suitable for election was not elected, we are not to believe it was a matter of chance. We are to assume that the Lord knew all about the election, and that in the divine arrangement, certain things were permitted to go in certain ways, and that therefore the president-elect was the most suitable or as in harmony with the divine arrangement. We are to believe that all things are working according to the counsel of God's will. Not that God touches every thought and act of every individual, not so. But God is able to regulate the winds of strife or contention, that the results will come about, not contrary to divine arrangements. We may be assured, so far as mere man is concerned, God does not care whether it is this one or another. So far as the world is concerned, the Lord has no preferences or favorite at all. It is along the line of principle that he is directing and ruling to work out eventually good to all. And he continues, thus God is arranging that all the affairs of the world will reach a crisis soon, whether he is permitting this king to rule or that one, or this one to president or that one. All things are working in harmony with his great program. God will set down the prince of this world, Satan, and all the arrangements he had made. Set them down by a great fall, by a great overthrow, and will set up his own kingdom that will bring blessings to mankind. His own kingdom will be the desire of all nations. It will be the kingdom of Messiah and his bride, who is to be his joint heir in his kingdom. It is the kingdom for which we have prayed. Thy kingdom come, that will be done in earth as in heaven. That's reprint 5303, Pastor Russell. So our message, brethren, to the world should not be about the time of trouble. The very word gospel is full of hope, for it means good tidings, one of joy. True, it may be necessary and appropriate at times to say something to respecting the time of trouble, yet even that subject should be approached from the standpoint of good tidings. So in mentioning the tribal trouble, we should mention it merely as a dark cloud which for a little season will obscure the rapidly oncoming day of Christ, the day of blessings and joy, the world's jubilee, the time of rolling away the curse and substituting God's blessing. Let us use our message as a message of hope, relieving the good world of its mental distress. I'll close with Micah 4, verses 1 to 5, that tells what God has in store for the human race that Jesus died for. Micah 4, verses 1 to 5. But in the last days it shall come to pass that the mountain of the house of the Lord shall be established in the top of the mountains, and it shall be exalted above the hills, and people shall flow into it. And many nations shall come and say, come, let us go up to the mountains of the Lord, and to the house of the God of Jacob, and he will teach us of his ways, and we will walk in his path. For out of Zion, for the law shall go forth of Zion, and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. Verse 3. And he shall judge among many people, and rebuke strong nations afar off. And they shall beat their swords into plowshares, and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war any more. But they shall sit every man under his fig tree, under his vine, and under his fig tree. And none shall make them afraid, for the mouth of the Lord hath spoken it. And verse 5. For all the people will walk every one in the name of his God, and we will walk in the name of the Lord our God forever and ever. Amen. May God have his blessing.